Welcome to the Millennial and a Boomer Walk into a Coffee Bar podcast.
The very best podcast to get your life advice in the form of a grande caramel macchiato in a venti cup, 1/3 whole milk, 1/3 almond milk, 1/3 soy milk, double the amount of vanilla syrup, caramel wall in the cup, no caramel drizzle on top, upside down, of course, tall ice cup, whipped cream, rounded lid, one shot extra espresso, decaf, cinnamon sprinkled on the top, and for the name, that's David, spelled Dafydd, please.
Or to get your business, finance, and life support black coffee advice, I'm Dan, I'm a Boomer.
And I'm Chase, the Millennial. Thanks for joining us today.
All right, we're back, and the last episode, some fireworks on that one. I think we disagreed pretty much from the outset.
You started off pushing back, and I thought, wow, but you brought up some good points that I've often thought and understood, but I just struggle in how we can get there. So we're looking for the millennials to show us the road path to getting away from this whole credit score and credit and spending what you have. And if you don't have it, you don't need it. But I do want to talk about society and personal beliefs and the influences that we have on spending money. Boy, are the influences out there in a big kind of way on getting you to part with your money.
Yeah. And I got to say, as we dig into this one, we did get some feedback. I had someone actually catch me in person this last week, and they said, hey, I've been listening to some of your personal finance podcasts, and really impactful. Thank you so much for sharing some of those pieces. So thank you for those of you listening, and we love your comments, your feedback, your 5-star reviews. Maybe you want to leave us a note in the comments. We love that. On the last episode, for sure, we want to know where you stand.
Yeah.
And as we kind of wrap up from the last episode, before we jump into the next one, I'm going to smooth things over now. Ready? Are you good with me smoothing things over?
You got me a little uptight from the last episode. That's how boomers they get that way.
Well, I took some time to help this smooth over. So if you'll do me a favor, behind you in your cabinet, there's a green bag. Will you pull that green bag out? And be careful.
There's a note, and I'll show this to you. There's a note that says, Papa, do not open, Chase. And I called you last night because I got in here and I thought, what in the world? I sent you a picture of it, and you said, do not open it. I didn't know that you were going to submarine me in front of the thousands and thousands or the tens and tens of viewers that we have. But go ahead. I've got it out. It's right here.
All right. Well, so this is my attempt to smooth things over. If you'll go ahead and open that up.
Oh. Now that is awesome. That I get my swag. I cannot believe that. It's a millennial and a boomer walk into a coffee bar coffee cup, and it says, I'm the check one, the boomer or the millennial. And I guarantee you, we've probably got an inventory of one. If the price is right, I would sell you this one. This is what it's all about. That's loud and proud. Thank you, Chase. I've been talking
You're
about
welcome.
Doing that. That is absolutely awesome.
Yeah. So I got 3 of them made up, and I got one for me, one for you, and one to keep here at this house because we're separated. For those of you who are just listening to the audio, we're not together. I'm 1,200 miles away in a family condo that we have. And I got one to keep at the family condo so that when we're recording and we're not in person, we could still have it. And you know what I did? I left it in Texas. So I'm drinking out of just this boring white one for this episode.
Well, thank you. And in fact, can we make these available for our tens and tens of listeners? If they want to
Yes.
send in a note or whatever, we can figure out how we're going to get these in the hands of the masses.
Yep. If you want one of the Boomer and Millennial walk into a coffee bar coffee cups, you can send us an email to partner@FerskindEd, FERSKENED.com, partner@FerskindEd.com, and shoot us over your name and your address, and we'll respond back with how you can purchase one. So they are available should you want to purchase one, which is pretty cool.
Way cool. I love it. I've been talking about swag, and coffee is the name of the game for us, and we do a lot on coffee, and sometimes we're too caffeinated. But anyway, so wow, that is a great surprise. Thank you. You don't know how much that means to me. And now I want to talk about influences on spending money. If you really want to spend some money, buy a coffee cup from us. That's the way I do it. No, let's talk about this. A bias of spending money, your personal belief. All of a sudden you look up, and you got $5,000 in the bank. There's two things that could mean to someone, and that is, oh my goodness, I'm going to save that. That's my emergency fund. I've got $5,000 in the bank. And then the other type of personality trait might be, man, I've been waiting to get $5,000 in the bank so I can buy this, or I can travel, or I can go on an adventure. Neither one of them is right or wrong. It's just a personal belief can influence you on how you spend your money.
And that should change over time. It shouldn't be 5,000 means one thing to you now, and it still means it 20 years from now, right? A millennial that's just, kind of at the end of their beginning of their career, heading into that middle part of their career, $5,000 is probably your 6 months worth of emergency fund. But when you hit the stage where you're like, okay, now I'm 20 years in on my career, now 5,000 could mean something different. And that's good. It's not a problem. But the question that you have to answer is, where are you today, and where does that 5,000 go towards now?
Right. And given time of where you're at in your career, or in your retirement, or in your working, it's going to change, right? So that's good. But let's go to the second one that is over the top, a big influence, and that's society's influence. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, as a boomer growing up, your automobile that you drive is your social status. And that was is that the same for millennials now? Is your car a big social status as much as it was when I was
It's not as much. It is to a point. I think that old Elon Musk changed it around, and millennials love to drive Teslas. They just love them. They think that's like a social status thing. However, I would say it's probably not as much as which smartphone that you have. If you've got the iPhone 16 Pro, that's a much better status symbol to most millennials, as opposed to which car they drive.
So society's influence is alive and well then, right? That's what you're telling me, that the latest gadget comes out and millennials will go jump on that. And I drove a 1972 Gremlin, which was my favorite car of all time. And your mother wouldn't ride in it when I was dating. Therefore, you knew where I fit in with the social status of the boomers growing up. But it's a real influence. The society has that influence. And then I'll call this one bias, whether it's real or not, on spending money. It's like, well, I'd rather avoid losing than investing in this. In other words, my appetite for investing or spending money is a lot less than my appetite for saving money. In other words, you miss out on a good investment or an opportunity because you're scared of losing money. So real or not, your bias can be skewed a little bit that says, I'd rather save it than spend it. And that can be a detriment at particular times too.
Yeah, and we haven't even delved into investing really yet. We've kind of touched bits and pieces, The one piece I will say here, do not invest more than you can afford to lose. And you're the one who taught me that, and I think your dad taught you that.
Yes, he did.
Because you're going to lose money when you invest. So only invest as much as you can lose. But your point is well taken. Sometimes people are like, I'd rather not invest at all. And I think a lot of millennials fit that because of, we talked about it 2 episodes ago, with what they saw their parents lose in the stock market housing crisis of 2008, 2009. But guess what? Millennials started late to investing, and they're behind the curve. If they would have started right when they got out of college and started investing right away, man, they'd be sitting on a nice chunk of change right now. But they got freaked out, and so they didn't start when they could have or should have, and they missed out on a whole lot.
There's in my marriage, there's 2 personalities on spending money, and there's one, me, go big or go home. I'm going to spend it. I'm going to take risk. I'm going to do that, and primarily on investing. And there's my wife that says, man, I'm not going to spend my money on that. I would be afraid of losing, and I'm just not going to do it. And it actually works because we moderate each other out. She's the wise one in a situation where you go be safe with your money, and I'm the one that goes big or goes home. So that's the bias and the reality of things, and the balance that you can have. And then there's something, I want to call it endowment's not the right word, but maybe entitlement or something. And I'll give you an example. If you buy something and you use it, and then you say, wow, I'm going to sell this, and you sell it for, or attempt to sell it for twice the amount that you bought it for, especially a car. If you buy a car, and you bought a Jeep as a young man, and you fixed it up, and you invested in it, and you painted it, and you did all this. But at the end of the day, you couldn't sell it for what it was worth to you. Not at all. So it's almost like, well, I'm entitled to that money because look what I've done to invest in it. And even at a garage sale, you say, I'm going to have a yard sale, and you set out all these trinkets, and you say, well, I should get $5 for that because I paid $12 for it. And it's a really cool thing, and it's in good shape, when it's really worth 50 cents. Understand that there's a way of spending money that's an influence that says, wow, it's worth more. And it's probably worth more than it is to you than it is to anybody else. And so be careful about that donation. Oh, I made that donation. The IRS said I could make it. I should get $50,000 off my taxes for that. When in reality, it's just not worth what you think it should be worth. Does that make sense?
It does. And you use the example of a Jeep, which is a bad investment, right? You lose money on that. But you can actually do something that's a good investment and still lose money and it not be good. So for instance, we bought our first house, and it was the best house we could afford, but it wasn't in a great neighborhood. And I lost my shorts when we sold that house. Yeah. And normally we would say, oh, well, buying a house is a good investment. Well, it is if you buy a good house that appreciates, but mine didn't. And so I learned a really valuable lesson there, that even though I thought I should be able to sell it for at least what I paid for it, that's not what I got, because what it's worth is not what you think it's worth. It's what someone else is willing to pay for it.
That's a great example too. And sometimes it's a harsh reality when it comes up like that and does that to you. So just
what I did? You know what I had to do? I had to sell my Jeep in order to pay that house off because I didn't have enough money to close.
Yeah. And I remember you thinking it was your pride and joy, and you'd put a lot of love, sweat, and tears into that thing. And you probably wanted to get more for that Jeep than what it was, but you got enough to pay for the expense that you had in selling your house. So it worked out. It was distasteful, but it taught you a good lesson, I think, too. So good. The other one is, and this is one I want to spend a little bit of time on, is I'll call it herd mentality. The herd mentality will always get you to spend money, and in a lot of instances, spend money that you don't have. Where do you think the biggest herd mentality comes from in today's environment?
Well, it's something that every listener is probably using right now to watch or listen to this thing, and that's via a cell phone. And the same thing is social media, right? It's on everybody's phone, and it gives you this idea that I've got to keep up with the Joneses. And here's the problem, I think, between millennials and boomers. When boomers had the keeping up with the Joneses idea, it was keeping up with those in your neighborhood or within your family, only the people that you physically could see in person. But now I'm comparing myself to people in different states, in different countries, with different valuations of currency. And so it's a much wider net that we're casting. And I'm seeing people that have wildly different backgrounds, and I'm trying to keep up with these people. Well, someone living in New York City and someone living in Dallas, Texas, both having a house that's 1,000 square feet. I mean, we're in different solar systems here financially. And so it really is tricky because now, you know, they want to compare to each other. And that's not even apples to oranges. I mean, that's like a mop bucket to an apple. It's just not even the same thing.
Yeah, and it's a competition almost, even amongst tight friends, because you can take a picture on vacation, you can take a picture of Christmas wrapping, opening your presents, you can take it and put it on social media, and someone says, "Oh, I didn't get that. Wow, I don't have that. Wow, I need that," and it's created such a mess and a dangerous mess in the social media that it's really trying on a bunch of these younger people. They're saying, how come? How come so-and-so has that and I don't? So then what do? They start to spend money. They start to get credit. They start to go after things just to keep up with the other people because they feel like they need to keep up with the appearances of the other people. Be mindful of that herd mentality. And there's one other thing I'll tell you that social media has created, and that's these trends. Oh my goodness, I see a trend about someone putting hot sauce or jalapenos or habanero peppers in their mouth and, you know, putting it on social media. And I'm not kidding you, a couple of young people have passed away because of that. And it's like, what do you think? And the latest dance routine, my granddaughter says, "Hey, Grandpa, let's do a social media. I'll show you this dance routine." And I'm like, "Where'd that come from?" "Oh, well, it's the latest dance on TikTok." And it's just created sometimes very dangerous things, but these trends that need to do, I need to go buy this or I need to go do that. Unbelievable to me, the boomer, that we're in that situation.
Well, a classic boomer. We're way off from the finances, but your point is well taken. That is an absolute problem that people deal with. And it's from something so simple to, you know, oh, I see them on that vacation. I want to go do that same vacation and get that same Instagram shot. But what they don't see is the 99% of the rest of that trip where the person twisted their ankle and got set up in some third world hospital, but they saw the one picture of the sunset at the beach. And now they've got to go do this wonderful vacation and spend all this money when, you know,
exactly.
the entire trip for that person wasn't what it appeared to be. So anyway.
Yep. It causes you to spend money to keep up with the Joneses, I think, is that herd mentality. And then there's this, we talked a little bit about grocery stores and the marketing and the information gotcha type activities. I'll tell you, the whole thing about sales price, half off, price reduced, these are enticing you to spend your money. And they are marketing brilliance where they come up to get you to part with your money by making you think, oh, I either got to buy it now or I won't get it, or man, it's a good deal that I need to do it. In other words, reaction buying just because of the way that they market it.
Yeah. Let's just play a fun little game here. If the thing is 50% off, that's a great deal, right? But if you don't buy it, you saved 100%.
There you go. That's it. You know, there's been times my wife comes home and says, "Wow, what do you think of this?" And I'm like, "I really like that." And of course, how much was it? And in some instances, she says, "Well, it was 50% off." Well, I don't care how much it was off. Well, it was a great deal. Well, so what does that mean? And you know, if you have to answer the questions by it was a sales price or it was half off or it was a great deal, rather than how much could you have saved if you didn't buy it, then your reaction buying based on what their marketing is.
you know they have a word for that. There's a trend on social media for that. It's called girl math, and it's when they answer 50% off instead of $100.
That's right. How much was it? It was cheap. Well, yeah. How much cheap can I get to buy whatever I need too? So, and then kind of the last one that I'll be talking about on this parting with your money is instant gratification. Oh, I gotta have that. Live in the now rather than thinking out. And I think you had mentioned it on a previous episode. Don't go buy it now. Don't part with your money now. If you pull that money out and you're ready to go put cash on the barrelhead, say, wow, I'm parting with my cash. That will be there again tomorrow. Put it back in your wallet, rethink it, and spend some time, especially if you're buying a big ticket item. Well, that's a beautiful car, man. And the dealer is going to say, hey, you better buy it now. It may not be here tomorrow, or it's a one-time deal, or you do it. And that instant gratification will get you to part with your money faster than anything else. So.
Yeah, I think let's call it what it is. The harder that the salesman is pushing, the more you need to say, I'm not buying that today. I'm going to go sleep on it. If they're pushing hard, there's a couple of things you should know. The first is you can still get money off. If they're still pushing hard, you still have money to negotiate there. But then two, you really need to stop and think about that and spend the night. And here's the beautiful thing. When you're shopping online and you put something in your cart, leave it in your cart overnight. And all this technology is all wrapped together now. Tomorrow, when you log on to something, it's going to start serving you those ads and you'll find a better priced item.
Ah, that's
so
a
you'll be able to
brilliant
get the
idea.
best thing.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great thing. Put it in your cart and then wait 24 hours before you buy it. And the whatever those things that are called that tell you what you're looking
The algorithms.
Algorithms, they'll deliver you probably half a dozen ones that are cheaper, better, faster, quicker, more beautiful. So good idea. So
Yep.
I want to spend a little bit of time here also, and we only have a couple of minutes, but social media, and there's generational differences in spending money by influencers of social media. Let me tell you something. Flash, 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 flash. Influencers are paid to talk about that products. It's not the greatest product. It's not the best, cheapest. You could probably get a coffee cup that would be better than the one that would work just the same. But you got to have it. You got to get it. You got to go do it. And those social influencers, they're making money by talking about those products. It's not in your best interest a lot of times.
Yeah, and I don't know if people understand how this whole influencing thing works. It's more than just buying. They're being influencers, or they're being paid to influence you, rather. They're not influencing themselves. They're influencing you to do what someone is paying them to get done. So for instance, you know what a big thing is political influencers.
Yeah.
You might be the stay-at-home mom that talks about moisturizer and conditioner and the latest cleaning product or whatever. And during election season, people are going to reach out to them and say, hey, why don't you give a pro plug to my candidate just in passing? Don't even make it a big deal, just in passing. And that happens all the time. And you're being infiltrated by whoever's paying the most money.
If I could, and we're going on shaky ground here, but the drug companies and the advertisements on TV, holy cow. I have never in my mind imagined that I would need all those drugs to make me feel better. They've got one for everything from the problems of going to the bathroom to this rashes you get on your skin. And they're all over the place on TV. And I get that, but I tell you, someone's getting paid a lot of money to put those on to influence you that thinks you need the latest and greatest drugs that are out there for your health.
And it's really interesting. In a lot of other countries around the world outside of America, it's actually illegal for drug companies to have commercials, but not here. We love it. So anyway, social media is there's influences before we get canceled on here.
Yeah.
They're paid to talk about products or services or candidates. And what is the goal of a lot of young people? It's more than money. What's the goal?
I'll tell you, they did a poll, and the number one thing people wanted to do as young people is to become famous. They wanted to be more than money, more than a great job, more than a big. I want to be famous. And so social media really does that, and becoming famous, because I think they equate famous with lots of money and lots of glamour and lots of everything else. That's the number one goal of people. Boy, I tell you, that's social media's influence right there on getting you to everybody has to have one of those ring lights that when they're doing their social, and it brights them and makes them beautiful, and they want you to spend the money. You'll get famous if you have one of those visual lights.
Yeah. Well, the advice they're giving is to get more views, more followers, and ultimately more influence. So we should probably be careful about getting advice from the people that we don't even know, that we're listening to a podcast or watching them on YouTube or something to that effect.
Unfortunately, that's it. People on social media, people on YouTube, people that are, we're trying to influence people. I think we're trying to influence people for the better, right? If you act like a boomer, you'll be better, happier, more wetter taken up. And that's wrong, because just because we're giving people advice, they don't need to take it, but just consider it, but also keep a balanced lifestyle about you. These social media people, they're giving you advice and they want more clicks for yes and thumbs up. Just kind of like what we do. I'd like to see if there's any viewers out there that would give us a thumbs up at a time, or a like. But anyway.
Speaking of, why don't you all give us a like, a comment, and 5 stars?
There you could you do that? At least give the new coffee cups at least a comment about it. I'd appreciate that. But beware of these things. You'll have a better chance at making decisions that are good for you and your financial stability if you're aware of these influences, and don't get taken by them. Be your own thinker, and also be responsible with your money. Just a good way to start today to get more financially responsible.
Awesome. And don't forget, just because it's different
doesn't mean it's wrong.